those corners. Stay away from the corners. Don't do it. So, because I want to stay minimal. And anyway, there we go. So I just hit what button?
That one.
This one up here.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so I'm going to tie into kind of what Don was saying. So from there, I read a book called The Untethered Soul, which posited that you live in the moment. You can't control the future. The past is gone. The only thing you really have control of is right now, this moment. So when you asked a question, I think it was over here about in 2050 or 2060, that's made up. That doesn't exist. Yes, we'd like it to tip. We'd love the krill to adapt. We would like all of that stuff to happen. But it's all air right now. So all we can really do is what can we do right now so that hopefully 2060 doesn't prove us wrong, that some magical thing was going to happen, some magical technology was going to get invented. We can't think about that. We can think about it, but we can't do it right now. All we can do is what we do right now. So my wife,
you'll be picked up on the recording better at the lectern microphone, or you can walk around with that handheld, whichever you like.
I'm not doing the whole comedy act, but yeah. So anyway, so my wife and I, and then we just happened to have a kid who turned 18, and we were like, God, we're done. Yeah, as if. So we decided, okay, we've had enough of Los Angeles. It was one traffic jam too many. We want to move. And our first thought was, let's move to Hawaii. It's aloha and all that. But my wife just wasn't having that. So we decided on the Central Coast. And our main goal was to get property, build a tiny home, being minimalist, and try to have as little impact as possible when we built this tiny house. So when we evaluated, we wanted to connect with nature, which this place, as opposed to Los Angeles, is much better for that. Find acreage, live minimally, build a tiny house, hopefully under 450 square feet, and maximize the square footage inside, which means every inch of our house has a purpose. And I mean every inch. When you live in 420 square feet, every single inch matters. From the shoes to the closets to everything. So we set out to do that. And a couple of you have come to our house, and I invite any of you that want to come up and see it. We have an open house policy. We will entertain anyone that wants to come up and see it, wants to come up and discover how we run off grid and all of these other things. So it's kind of cool. So the way that it all got born is we wanted to stay in California. We didn't want to run to Texas. We didn't want to do the cliche thing and run to Utah or New Mexico or whatever. We wanted to stay here. We started in Paso Robles, searched for a lot of properties, didn't find anything that was really good, but then we ended up in Atascadero. Now, I had no idea that Atascadero existed. I went Atascadero, and it ended up was 10 miles south of Paso Robles. So I was like, whoa, no kidding. And yeah, it was true. So we went up and we found some really nice property. We found 8 acres. It was reasonably priced. And I'm going to share numbers with you guys, by the way. I'm not shy about that. We had an unobstructed view. And most importantly was we made sure that we had a good sunlight path, so that, because we had planned to do solar. So we wanted to make sure that the house could face the sun all the way as it came up and over and across during the winter. So we managed to actually find that, and that is right there. That's our property. So if you look kind of up to the left-hand side, you'll see the little road that comes down, and that's before we built the house on it. So it's 8 acres. It goes all the way down and around, and it's got absolutely stunning views. And next. There we go. So when we built it, so we got the land and we went to the city and we were like, okay, what's it like to build a house? We just roll it in, right? Like on YouTube. And they were like, oh, no, that's not quite how it works. That's not legal. So I said, okay, so what do we got to do? And they said, well, you got to get plans and permits. And I said, God, this is getting way more complicated than it was supposed to be. So we went ahead and got the plans, submitted them, and we thought, can we build this house with mostly recycled material? And it turned out Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, corners of Los Osos had a lot of material that we could use to build this house. So most of our home is reclaimed wood. The fixtures we got at the Restore, I'm sure you all know what that is, or Goodwill or whatever. And then all of the metal siding on the house, we took a trip to Oregon. This guy had taken a barn down and gave us the metal. He gave us thousands of dollars worth of metal siding, and we just had to cart it back. Sorry, I didn't do a calculation on the CO2 when I went to get it. But I'm hoping that by not producing new metal, we somehow offset that. So then we decided, okay, we want to power ourselves independently of the grid. We want to be off-grid. Well, what does that mean? That means you don't have a connection to the gas company, you don't have a connection to PG&E. Water was a little iffy, but we could dig a well to have our own water. And so we thought, oh, how cool would this be? What does that mean? So we started building, and it turned out it was illegal. You cannot be off-grid, it turned out. Well, you couldn't be before now. So we went to the city, and they said, sorry, you have to connect to your utility. And I said, well, that's absurd. Why should we have to do that? And they said, because that's the way it is. And so we set about to try and figure out, would the city work with us? Well, we happen to have two very progressive city planners in Atascadero who were all about off-grid. I mean, they were excited about it. They said, well, you know what, we'll just look the other way, and you go ahead and just don't connect to them. And I said, yeah, but that's kind of iffy. You know, there's actually a state ordinance. So they were like, well, we're going to work with you. We're going to try and do that. So the first thing we did was calculate our power usage. Well, how much power do we need at this off-grid house? Because we were going to capture it from the sun, put it into batteries, and not use gas. So how do you do that? Well, a simple calculation is, if a light bulb uses 100 watts, if it's rated at 100 watts, that's how much watts it uses in an hour. So you go through and you count every appliance you have in your house. And I mean charging your cell phone. It means the little Roomba vacuum, everything that you use. And calculate that all together, and that'll give you a number. It'll say, oh, per hour you need 2 kilowatts, 2,000 watts an hour. Or it'll say you need 500 watts an hour. And then double it. Double that number, just in case. So we doubled that number, and we figured, well, we need about 1.5 kilowatts an hour to operate. So we went ahead and thought, okay, we can build a system like this with some solar panels and all that. And we built it. We actually did it. And these young ladies over here actually have seen it, have come up and seen the house and the power. And I just want to tell you, it's not that easy. It comes with a lot of compromises. You have to change your lifestyle if you're going to do something like this. It's not like you just walk out and throw the air conditioning on at 68 in a 100-degree day and blast air conditioning and walk around in a t-shirt. You know, or in the wintertime, you turn the heat all the way up and you wear a t-shirt in the house, which is absurd. So we had to adjust the way we do things, how we lived, and even though the pricing wasn't that bad, but all of these incentives now are gone. So how much did it cost? What did we have to do to build it? So we got lucky. So in terms of the illegal thing I talked about, Atascadero city attorney actually worked with us to challenge the state law and said, you know what? It says must connect to a utility in the state law, but it didn't say public utility. So we argued in a legal brief that we are our own utility. we defined ourselves as a utility. And we went to Gavin Newsom's office and we called our state representative and everything, and they agreed with us. Yes, you may do it. So the city of Atascadero became the first municipality in California to legalize off-grid living. So you can actually retrofit your house, or you can build a new house and not connect to the gas company or PG&E legally in our city. So we now do not have a connection to them. We generate our own power. We have it stored in batteries, and we don't use natural gas, which on its own, not using natural gas will cut your carbon footprint huge. So this is our off-grid solar system. I like to tell people and give numbers to it. This is what it cost us. Yes?
Could you give us an idea of what span of years you were doing this?
Oh, I will answer that at the end, I promise. I promise I will. So what we paid for our off-grid solar system was $3,500 for the panels. We have 15 panels generating 6,500 watts of solar. We have about 20 kilowatt hours of storage. So if you were to run 1,000 watts an hour, we could run in total darkness for 20 hours. There is no such thing, by the way. Even when it rains, you can generate power. The inverter and the controllers and all that cost about $4,500. The installation was about $3,000, but we did a lot of that installation ourselves. We hauled the panels up, we assisted the electrician, we bolted stuff down and all that, so we cut that cost a lot. So the total cost of the system was about $14,500. Our expected payoff period for this, at current electricity pricing, today's prices, which will not stay this price. We all know that. It will go up. Electricity never goes down, it only goes up. So we figure in about 5 years it will have paid for itself at today's rates. So we think it's a good deal. We were glad to put out the money and do it. And there is a freedom that comes with generating your own power. Hello? Change? No?
There,
Your battery's running low.
Oh. Yes, that I'm working off of a different one here.
By the way, that's a picture of the batteries under the house that operate it. Oh, thank you.
Where do you keep them?
Under the house. Yeah. So what we always ask, so now we're being besieged with questions from people that are seeing what we've done, and they ask us all these questions. So I say, well, I could do 20 slides on this and talk for 2 hours. Is off-gridding for you? Can you live this way? Because it's not like being connected to the power company. It isn't. And we're the first people to say that. You have to change your ways. You have to get used to power. You have to get used to changing certain things. If you live in the desert, you can't cool that house down to 60 degrees. So you just have to acclimate. The hottest our house gets in the summertime is about 78 degrees, which to me is fine. I have a friend though who can't live unless her house is 68 degrees. What's just not going to happen if you're off-grid? And I don't even want to know what your bills are. Like I have friends that pay $600 a month in electrical just to run the air conditioning. It's incredible. And in the winter time, yes, people go, does your house get cold? Yeah, it gets cold. It sure does. It gets down to like 55 degrees. I put a flannel shirt on. I have an electric blanket. We do have heaters. We have a pellet heater that will boil the house if we want it to. Costs $6 a month in pellets. That's it, and uses about 80 watts an hour. But we don't turn it on that much because we can handle it. Can you do most of your tasks when it's daylight outside? We have learned to adjust. You want to do the laundry? We do it during the day. You want to run a lot of power intensive stuff? Do it when the sun is shining. These are ways that, believe it or not, people used to live this way before all of the modern conveniences took over and we can have anything, anytime that we want. Well, we don't do it that way. We kind of go backwards a little bit and go, you know what? Yeah, it's cold. Put an extra blanket on the bed. Cuddle up a little bit closer. When we cook, we have a pellet smoker outside that we do a lot of cooking in. We have an induction heater, stovetop, that cooks much more efficiently than a normal stovetop does. All of these little tweaks that we do to make it easier to not have to rely on constant power. And by the way, one of the big benefits of it is when everybody was experiencing brownouts and blackouts, had no idea, because our power never went down. It's our own power, we generate it. So I don't really care what PG&E is doing. Come on, there we go. So normally everybody asks me a million questions, but I took out about 20 slides to get this down into the 15-minute squeeze range. But one of the things that, by the way, my wife just came in, she's back there. Hello, wife. She was selling pies at the farmer's market and somehow got over here.
Their pies are wonderful.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
And you didn't bring one for us to try?
It got eaten before we got here, I'm sorry. You were just a little late, but you know, next time. So we are very excited to announce we are expanding our business in Atascadero and working with the city, and we're going to have an off-grid business development. So it'll be the first off-grid business development in California, which is really cool. So a couple of other things to note. It was a really hard fight. It really was. So please convince some other people to do this so that it wasn't just. And I would like to say that in the end, it did take us 5 years to get to this point. So it was a long journey. My wife
You were pioneers.
Yeah, well, we didn't want to be pioneers.
I know.
But here we are. One of the things my wife likes to say a lot is, don't be the first. And
that's not you.
And that's not me. And I ignore that every single time. I don't know why I do that all the time, but I do. And she's like, again? I'm like, yeah, again. You know, I'm so sorry. But anyway, I'd like to open it. Anybody have any questions? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to say that I've got a similar system in Los Osos. 6 kilowatts, 20 kilowatt hours of battery.
Perfect.
Heat pump, electric car. And if I put in one more battery, I could disconnect. I'm that close to being stable.
Yeah, yeah.
And they keep saying that you have to connect to PG&E, but what happens if you don't pay your bill?
Right, yeah,
Automatically disconnected.
That is a dang good rationale, I think.
I'm connected, there's no meter.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Come over here.
So, by the way, in ticking from what you've said, battery prices have come way down, just so you know. So, like a Tesla Powerwall, which used to be the big one, which is like 12 grand, 13,000. I did the equivalent power of a Tesla Powerwall for 2,000, about 2,200 after all the discounts and everything. So it is reachable now. You know, it really, again, a lot of people get the sticker shock of it. And it's like, I'm not going to spend 20,000. But well, if you're paying $500 a month for power, that 20 grand is only 40 months of paying PG&E. And you get nothing back from PG&E at all. Yes?
I put in a solar system, and we had 2 EVs. And during my trip here, I actually got a check for $174 every year, about $200 a year. So, I mean, you can't beat that. Actually, get a check back every year during your trip up here.
Yeah.
That's not your retirement. Well, that's not your retirement from PG&E. That's the check back on the power.
Just saying, the solar panel, despite having 2 EVs and having solar panels, we're making more power than we're consuming, and hence getting a check back, but we're under NEM 2.
Yeah.
So I think NEM 3 may not work that well.
See, and none of that applies to us. We just don't pay a bill, period. So I don't need to get a check back from them because I'm never giving them a check in the first place, you know? And I'll by the way, this is gonna sound kind of kooky, but one of the reasons we hate PG&E so much is because they burn the whole town down and aren't even paying now that they've got judgments against them. Their infrastructure is very out of date and they keep raising prices. And my father's house happened to burn down in those fires. So I have a kind of personal issue with them, but that aside, yes, get the rebate, get solar. If you do nothing else, get solar panels, yes.
Where do you bake those pies?
We bake them at our shop in Atascadero and then at Wildfields Brew House. We also bake there. So yes, and we're then the new development is going to be kind of a neat way that we're going to bake the pies, but I'll leave that to people to discover later. It's quite innovative. Yes?
So what do you do about phone service and Wi-Fi?
It powers, so we have a little portable Wi-Fi.
Your cell phone works?
Yeah. Well, not really well, but you know, it works.
What do you do for Wi-Fi? What do you do?
We have a standalone module that plugs into the wall. It's a 5G hotspot, or we could get Starlink. We could get one of those. There's a lot of options now. You don't have to have wires anymore.
If you live in Los Angeles, none of that's going to work. We don't have cell.
We're impressive that we have Starlink and it close the doors off anything else that's out there, and all I did is put a dish on the roof, plug it in.
Yeah, and all we did was we got this box at T-Mobile. I popped it on a windowsill and plugged it in, and literally I have, again, but I'm not playing, you know, games that need like tons of bandwidth. I just watch some TV now and then and think a phone call. But again, we're minimalists, so I don't know if people can live that way. But, you know, for us, living with less is more. Living more economically is better. So anyway, I encourage you all. John is going to put this online, I think. I've got links. I'll put all the slides back in when he puts it back up with information for the city officials at Atascadero. They'd love to hear from people with input on this. I've got a link to the ordinance that they passed, the legal ordinance, if any of you want to see it and read it. And my email address will be there. I am happy to answer any and all questions about this particular subject. I'm very passionate about it, and I'd love to hear from you guys, okay? Thank you.
What an amazing pioneer, huh? Just an entrepreneurial spirit, and when you have a chance to see what he has in mind for creating this this off-grid business thing, you'll be even more amazed. So we're going to switch now. One of the things I want to highlight is that Gina and John provided wonderful things to snack on. If you want to dash in there and take, you know, just 5 minutes to dash in, grab something. We've got coffee, we've got water, and we've got munchies. So grab it. You can bring it in here. I don't think they'll get after me for that, but I'll get it cleaned up before they do. And then we'll start up in like 5 minutes.